and the Garden, tough to beat
Yeah.
as a place to perform, whether it's basketball or if you're a musician, right, or a vocalist.
You never stop recruiting, do you, Tate? I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm ready to commit, Coach. Where's the? You got the papers here? On today's episode of Titus and Tate, we will be talking to our new colleague, Steve Lavin. Coach Steve Lavin, Coach Lavin. Call him whatever you want. He doesn't care. He showed up in studio. He was wearing a full get-up Adidas jumpsuit.
And then tried to act like he wasn't wearing a full Adidas, get-up and try to act like it just randomly happened. He didn't know where it came from.
I was mesmerized by his hair. I was mesmerized by his whole aesthetic. It was a fun interview. He got his start at Purdue, and being an Indiana guy, I knew a lot of people that he knows, and I wanted to ask him a million things, but I don't know. It was a great interview. I knew I could talk to him for forever. And
the people are asking, did you sign your LOI today? Did you sign your letter?
I was ready. Yeah,
okay,
yeah. He at two different times he was basically explaining to me what made St. John so great, but then he was also explaining what made UCLA so great. And I was like, I commit to both, Coach. I'll play for both programs.
Well, we committed to Fox Sports.
Yeah.
We knew Coach Lav was here, and we're like, we'll be at Fox Sports.
We're also going to talk about, speaking of UCLA, it works out well that a former UCLA head coach was here because we have to talk about the UCLA Bruins and the Pac-12 update. The hottest team in America. I'm taking it there.
It's official.
Not just the Pac-12. They are the hottest team in America. Mick Cronin is the hottest man in America. He's the sexiest man alive. What UCLA is doing is unbelievable. We went to Pauley Pavilion for both games that they just won. And that is going to encompass a big part of your Pac-12 update. I
think that it is the entire update with that.
will be.
We went to back-to-back UCLA games. Mick Cronin is, like you said, the hottest coach in America. People love Mick Cronin. And if you had told us this in December, I think that I could have told you 15 million other things that would have happened.
Right.
One of them being maybe the Milky Way doesn't exist anymore. And here we are.
As it
Mick
turns
Cronin
out, 4 billion years, it's going to happen according to the Twitter GIF that was.
Yes.
Buckle up for that one.
Nat Geo really getting at people.
Also, a pretty weird Saturday with Baylor losing. Duke lost. I don't know if you saw that, Tate.
What's going on?
Back to back. They already lost because I said Duke lost, and you're like, no, we already talked about that. No, Tate, they lost again,
and they fell all the way to 12 in the polls. What a drop off.
So yeah, there was some shakeup. Maryland lost. I don't know how that happened. That was very surprising. Who saw that coming? So we're going to talk about some of that. There's obviously a ton of stuff going on in college basketball. March is officially here, Tate.
Yes.
We have to get excited. We have to get revved up for the greatest month of the year. All right, before we get started, we have exciting news, Tate. Breaking news. We have merch. We are following in the footsteps of John Rothstein, who is the merch king.
Don't you ever say that.
This is merch. Has he done this as merch yet? Has he made this a thing?
Absolutely, he has definitely done that. And if he hasn't, we'll trademark it right now. We're calling the lawyers at Fox to get this going. Hashtag merch madness. If you see it from John Rothstein, please add us and let us know that because we have to send him a cease and desist.
Our friends at Homage made shirts for us. Really, the whole point of making shirts is we want to bring back Dirty Laundry. You remember Dirty Laundry was on the old program. We would read stories that people would submit from. It started out as managers telling stories. It quickly turned into just like we accepted stories from anybody. It used to be like I was
to our own detriment.
Yeah, I was sort of fact checking these, and then eventually I was like, nah, I'll just take any story, whatever. So we have an email address, titusandtate@gmail.com. Send us. The premise is you run into basketball players on campus, coaches on campus. You're a part of a team, and you're in a locker room when a coach said this, when this player punched this player this one time. And I can't stress this enough. We do not want to hear names. Do not name names. We're not trying to ruin anybody's life or career or anything else. We're just trying to all have a good laugh. But we're going to give out shirts to our favorite stories. And I wanted to find a way to reward people. And I figured people love merch. So let's just have Homage make us some shirts.
Yeah, people do love merch, and we're going to put it out to the world tomorrow.
Yeah.
The actual link for the merchandise. To bury the lead. I mean, it's basically like a bag on a shirt that says Titus and Tate, but it's a comfortable shirt. It's a beautiful shirt. Homage is a company that I have a Homage shirt on right now.
I do as well.
It's
they're great.
Comfortable t-shirt. So even if you don't like Titus and Tate,
we don't care.
Yeah, just buy the shirt. You know,
Or you know what?
They even have an option. You don't have to buy what they write on the shirt. They're like, just buy the shirt.
Or don't buy
Whatever
the
color you want.
Or don't buy the shirt. I don't care.
Merch madness.
Do whatever you want.
Just tweet merch madness.
Do whatever the hell you want. It's a free country. Coronavirus is wiping us all out. I got to be honest with you. I'm worried about coronavirus. I was joking with Duncan about it on the show. And
Duncan was not joking.
Duncan, like, and then he asked me how I felt. I was obviously like, if it's my time, it's my time. I don't really care. And then I don't know, like something happened where I think I said that because I didn't actually look up any stats whatsoever. I knew literally nothing. I think it was just like an ignorance is bliss situation. And then I started Googling. I was like, what is coronavirus anyway? This is interesting. And I don't know, people are dying now in America. This is close to it happened. I think it was like, no, you know what it was? I made the joke like Moses might have it, and then people started tweeting at me that dogs can get it now.
Yeah,
and I think
the classic modern American where it's
and
like,
then,
I don't care until my dog.
Yeah.
What do you mean canine? And then it blows up. And honestly, hearing that Moses could be affected, now I'm more concerned.
Yeah.
Poor
but
coronavirus.
at the same time, like, what do you do? They tell you not to touch your face, like, and I mean,
let me just tell you, I woke up to a knock on the door at 9
impossible.
a.m. this morning from an Amazon delivery that my mother had made last night to get wipes because I have to wipe down the entire plane apparently before I get on that plane, before anyone else gets on that plane. I will probably be in a full hazmat suit by the time she gets done sending me things for this flight because we are flying in the heat of all this. You know, we're going to New York.
We're about to do a lot of traveling. We're
going to go to Austin. We're going to go to Atlanta for the Final Four. We're going to be in Vegas. We're going to be all over the place. So I will have lots of wipes.
Do you think coronavirus can do what the FBI was too cowardly to do, which is just take over a college basketball season and bring the hammer that the FBI could?
This is actually what the FBI put in the world. They're like, how do we stop college basketball?
Can I be the first to make this joke? I hope I am. Put coronavirus as your winner in your bracket, right? Like do that. That's a good. If you see anyone else do that, I came up with that first, and
it's a good Halloween costume. Dress up as a bracket and then put coronavirus. Well, I mean, honestly, there's a chance that the NCAA, they said that maybe people won't be in the arena for the games.
I know.
Seriously.
I still can. So I think I'm scared of coronavirus. I'm officially not. I'm not scared, but I am. Like,
are you hitting the panic button?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But it's on my radar now. I'm like, oh, this is a thing. This is actually like I thought it was like a meme. It's no longer a meme. It's like an actual thing. But I still have settled on I'm not going to change my behavior in any way. And also, I still think if I get it, it would actually be great for content and it'd be kind of funny. So I'm not that scared. Like I think like I would spin it into a positive. I would turn it into content for the show. And I think that's the
moral of the story.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, we're willing to put our lives on the line.
Let's talk about another man who's willing to put his life on the line, and that is Mick Cronin, the head coach of the UCLA Bruins, who has, by hook or by crook, has figured out a way. The UCLA Bruins on January 15th were 8-9. They lost at home to Stanford. They had lost to disastrous programs such as Cal State Fullerton, such as Hofstra, such as North Carolina. Just the bottom feeders of college basketball. Actually, Hofstra's having a pretty good year. Sorry, Hofstra. Didn't mean to rip on you there. They were 8-9. They've now won 11 of 13, Tate. We just witnessed them sweep the Arizona teams. They are red hot. I really think they might be okay. Maybe the hottest team in the country is taking a little too far, but they got to be one of the 5 hottest teams in the country. Who wants to play UCLA right now? Nobody. Nobody wants a piece of this.
Everyone east of the Mississippi, I think, is willing to sign up for that game. They're like, what seed are they going to be in the tournament? Yeah, I'll take that.
They're not even going to make the tournament, are they? They're going to be on the. But there's. I want to start with it. Here are my thoughts right now. I have nothing against UCLA. I've become a UCLA. I think technically we're boosters now. We've gone enough games. I think if I buy another box of popcorn and another Chick-fil-A sandwich, I'm technically become a booster. I crossed the threshold. It would be cool for UCLA to be good, for us to be here. We're the only college basketball podcast I know of that operates in LA, so we kind of have the, we're on top of this story right now in the way that a lot of the other ones aren't. But at the same time, the best case scenario for content is that Mick Cronin and UCLA win the Pac-12, but don't make the tournament. That is the dream that I want. It's still in play. If Oregon loses, like UCLA doesn't technically have to win again because Oregon could lose, and then UCLA could lose to USC and get a share. They lose to USC, say they lose in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament. They technically win the regular season Pac-12 title, and they probably don't make the NCAA tournament.
And then they get to pull the card that UCF pulled in football, where they're like, "We are the national champions.
Yeah, we were the national champions. We didn't get a chance.
We didn't get
we just didn't get a chance.
6 games. You're telling me Mick's not going to win 6? Come on, that's the play for UCLA. And welcome to the Pac-12 update. Here we are yet again. We're fully on in Bruin country. And before we get there, quickly, one note about the Pac-12: Stanford, most regular season wins since 2008. Congratulations to the
really?
Cardinals.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
most regular season wins since 2008.
Pac-12 stat of the day.
Woo! Back to UCLA. All right, there we go. Slam slam that. That door is shut now. Pac-12 doing great. UCLA is doing great because we saw Bobby Hurley versus Mick Cronin. And for whatever reason, Mick Cronin has been able to – a guy that we thought was unhinged, right, in Vegas. We saw him just be absolutely erratic. Now he is the savant coach. He's the one that is somehow putting it together and actually, keeping the button with his jacket, He's running a strict program. If you don't play good defense, he'll rip you out of the starting lineup, even if you're a senior like Prince Ali or one of these other guys. And Sean Miller is losing his mind over there.
Yes.
He gets thrown out of the game. Bobby Hurley on Thursday night also losing his mind. So somehow Mick Cronin has created this whole aura of what a seasoned, savvy coach we have at UCLA.
Mick Cronin is like the calming influence
He's
persona.
like Megamind.
It's so funny because we went to the press conference after the Arizona game, and you're in there watching him, and he's just like the most mellow, chill guy. And we saw this in Maui too. Like in his post-game press conferences, he's always just like, "We're playing good ball," and then he'll like do that smile where he smirks, and he's like, "It's a tough league," and he just kind of has that. And you're like, is this the same guy that was just stomping and yelling and it is, but he's figured out the balance of screaming at the refs, screaming at the players, but then also being like the cool, calm, collected guy. As Bobby Hurley, as you said, was losing his mind. Sean Miller got ejected from the game, the Arizona game on Saturday. Which I think was the problem with that one was he did it on purpose. That was a Norman Dale situation. He was purposely trying to get ejected to get his guys going. What he wasn't prepared for was the guy who stepped in for him. I don't even know who the assistant guy. It wasn't Danny Peters.
That's
it was
all
not Danny Peters. I'm an advocate for Danny Peters, my college roommate who was an assistant coach on staff. When Sean Miller got ejected, I started rubbing my hands like, Danny's going to this up.
We're the two guys in UCLA gear going, Danny. Everyone's like, who's Danny? It's like, that guy.
That guy right there. Yeah, right.
Red
Danny.
tie.
And then they let the other assistant coach, and Danny was – I could see Danny on the bench. Like, I think he was cheering against the coach. I'm kidding. Sorry, Danny, I'm joking. No, so Mick Cronin has somehow found a way to be the calm, cool, collected guy, which is –
While also being a maniac.
While also being a maniac. It's genius. How has he done it? I don't understand.
It's duality. It's what people want. People want a show. Mick Cronin knows how to give you a show on the sideline. He also has – so their point differential is not that crazy. I think it was like minus 1.7 over the past like 13 games. And this new thing, they're like plus 3.7. There's not a huge difference. You know what I mean? Like the team has not changed that much.
It's basically Chris Smith is –
good,
like really good now,
like a reliable scorer.
And then
that if they need a bucket, give it to
Tiger.
Chris Smith.
And then Jake Kyman couldn't miss against Arizona State. That was to be in the arena for the Jake Kyman show was something special.
19 points in the first half.
And then that carried over to Arizona, where as soon as he gets in the game and touches the ball, the whole crowd stands. And by the whole crowd, I mean I'm right there with him, just standing up, just like yes, Jake. That is electric. And then Tiger Campbell just plays like ass the entire game basically, but then hits big shots. That's the formula. That's the formula right there. It's Chris Smith, be the best player in the Pac-12, and he's playing like he is, even though he's probably not. Obviously, Peyton Pritchard's great, but Chris Smith, play like the best player in the Pac-12. Jake Kyman, just never miss. That's awesome. We're going to play great defense, and then Tiger Campbell, you're going to show up. It's going to be Tiger time in the last 4 minutes.
And Jaime is also the other guy that's sitting right there that's doing a bunch of – he hit the shot against UCLA, or against Arizona State to actually win the game for UCLA. So that was another guy that's really stepped up. And when we watched UCLA earlier in the year, it was kind of the usual suspects. Like, there's Prince Ali being terrible. You know what I mean? Like, just like what you'd expect from this team. And now it seems like Mick Cronin has found the guys that bought into Mick Cronin basketball, which is
I love Mick Cronin
we
basketball.
play defense, we don't take any shit from anyone else, and we're gonna play hard. And Chris Smith, he looks like an NBA player right now because he's playing that way.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So we don't know what's going on. That's what we should say.
It's Oregon is still probably going to win. I'm doing the math in my head. Like, how can we make this happen? Oregon still has 2 games left. If Oregon wins both of them, UCLA has to win at least at USC. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's gonna work. But I think USC is gonna win. USC has to beat UCLA.
And there's some redemption there because last year we went to the game, the last game of the season in Pauley, and UCLA hits a game-winning shot with Jalen Hands, and that was a moment that USC had to deal with. And now I feel like
we have to go. I think we have to try to find a way to go to the USC game. I think I'm all in on UCLA now. I think we
don't know anyone in private schools. Where are the wealthy kids? Give us some tickets.
Yeah. How do you feel about Arizona? What are your thoughts on Arizona? Because Arizona might be the most talented. This is what you say about teams that just have a lot of freshmen, and you can't find nice things to say about them. So you just say they have the most raw talent. But yeah, Arizona might have the most raw talent in the Pac-12. But boy, They just got swept in LA. They play uninspiring basketball.
I think that, Sean Miller probably has the most raw neck in all of college basketball because when you think about the sweat that is just dripping.
Did you see the pictures of him?
What?
Like the spit on his chin?
What is going on? What is the dribble? On his chin, he's like freaking out, all this other stuff. He's obviously, got soaked clothes on. He's also trying to, like you said, outdo Mick Cronin's crazy and also make a scene to get his players to get fired up. If that's what you have to do to get your players fired up, maybe they're just not going to get fired up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that that's going to motivate them. They're like, our coach is losing his mind. Same with Bobby Hurd.
Are you in agreement with me that he purposely got ejected?
Yes, of course.
What was the thought process there? To get the guys going?
The thought process is
you
cannot blame me if I am not coaching this team, right? It's not my fault. This is this assistant's fault.
The game doesn't count.
Please don't fire me.
Yeah.
I think that's all Sean Miller's thinking. He's like, if I lose to Mick Cronin and this UCLA team on such a big stage when I should upset them, they're going to turn on me in Tucson.
I thought about this. What if there's a coach whose shtick was getting ejected as often as possible? But it was always getting ejected. Mm-hmm. Maybe this would be my brand. Always getting ejected when you're up big and you're going to put the walk-ons in. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're giving the walk-on players an opportunity to come in. You're taking them out. And then you're going to give your assistant coaches, you're going to do the Norman Dale where you're like, I'm going to give my assistant coach some head coaching reps. Mm-hmm. So you just go ballistic and get tossed when you're up by 35 with a minute and a half left.
Here's the trick. You got to get mad at your own players, right? You got to get mad at your team for scoring on, whoever you're beating.
That's happened before, right?
This is sportsmanship.
There's an example, I swear it's happened before, of a coach that got attacked for yelling at his own guys. I swear this has happened before. I hope someone listening will.
Let's just say Bobby Knight.
Probably, yeah. But that is a great way to get ejected. If you can get ejected for you're yelling at your own players so much that the refs come over and police your own coaching, that'd be great. Maybe that's what I should do.
Yeah, that was the Michael Jordan when he does the cradle dunk against Maryland, and then Dean Smith goes over and apologizes to Lefty Drizel and the rest of the Maryland team, and Michael Jordan's like, "What? Yeah. You didn't see that dunk?" He's like, "Listen, we do not do that. We do not showboat here at the University of North Carolina."
Colorado got swept.
Yeah,
in the Bay. Colorado's
again,
out.
Stanford.
Yeah,
most regular season wins since 2008.
So what Pac-12 teams do you believe in? Obviously, you're a UCLA believer. Your thoughts on Arizona State?
I'm not a UCLA believer. I am an Arizona believer. I am an Arizona State believer. I'm a USC believer. I am a Washington State believer, and that's all that I will say.
The what?
Those are the teams I believe in. Those 5 teams.
You don't believe in UCLA?
No.
But you do believe in
Washington
State?
Yes, because of Kyle Smith. Best coach in the Pac-12.
Okay.
If you're watching closely the Pac-12, you know Kyle Smith's game. Nobody does. You know Cougar basketball.
If you're watching closely the Pac-12,
you're watching the Pac-12,
you're listening to the wrong show.
You know what I'm talking about. Kyle Smith. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh God. Yeah. What other thoughts are there? Did Gonzaga beat St. Mary's? They were tied at halftime.
Well,
San Diego State was down against Nevada.
I was going to say the big talk, right, is like we could potentially, we should say this, potentially have 2 number 1 seeds west of the Mississippi.
With 4 number 1.
Well, let's just smooth the Mississippi over a little bit. You know what I mean? Let's just get rid of these other
You mean in the Pacific time zone?
Yes,
we'll
the West Coast basketball world.
Okay.
We have 2 potential teams to be number 1 seeds in Gonzaga and San Diego State.
Okay.
That's monumental. Just wanted to
good.
point that out. I think that's pretty good.
That's
for a year that we dedicated to West Coast basketball.
And neither one of them are in the Pac-12. That's the best part about it all.
Yet.
No, Poly Pavilion, fun times. Thank you to the UCLA
always.
Pavilion Club hooking us up with $9 drinks, and
we were saying how funny it is. Like,
yeah.
Could you imagine donating millions of dollars, walking in, and someone being like, "That'll be $8."
Yeah,
you're like, for a water? Son, I'm thirsty.
We really should. We need to break down the pavilion. I don't know how this happens, but Tate and I, every time we go to a UCLA game, we find our way into the Pavilion Club's like the big donors thing.
Yes,
and the scene there is. It's a little different than the club at Ohio State. I'll say that much.
Mm-hmm.
Like the clientele at UCLA, as you might imagine, is very different. But as you said, it's so funny because you walk around and you can tell like the 5 or 6 guys who donated like $39 million every year, and they're getting charged like $9.50 for a beer.
They don't care.
They don't care. They're still
like,
squeezing about it. Yeah, we'll save that for another day. But congratulations to UCLA. What could possibly go wrong now? You're flying high. You are the in sole possession, Tate, in first place. They do not have to win a game necessarily to win the Pac-12. But like I said, if Oregon loses, they clinch a share of the Pac-12. That is what I'm rooting for. No disrespect to UCLA. I think UCLA fans are kind of rooting for that too. I don't think they want to make the tournament. I think it's best to not make the tournament. Win the Pac-12, don't make the tournament because you don't want to get like exposed necessarily. You just want to like ride it out. You just want to be like, I can't believe in year one, Mick Cronin got us to win the Pac-12.
You don't remember this period of time right now.
Yeah.
You don't want to remember like getting blown out in the NCAA tournament.
Losing in Dayton in the play-in game to NC State by 12. Like, who wants to? No, that's not how you want the season to end. You want it to end by watching Selection Sunday and your name's not called, and then you have Dickie V on TV.
Oh no, baby, come on!
Screaming about how the underdog is once again disrespected, and he's talking about a program with 11 national titles. That's what you want. That's exactly how we want the season to end.
I wanted to ask Coach. We have Coach Lavin coming up. I should have asked him how much does he hate the number 11? Because I feel like at UCLA, if you're the head coach, that's all you hear all the time. Well, 11 national titles.
Yeah,
remember that? You're like, yeah, I do. Yes, I do. Good luck.
Well, let's talk to him. We sat down with Coach Lav. He came in. Kind of a long interview. We were long-winded because we get so excited when we get a guy like him. He's got stories for days, and we could have talked to him for a whole nother hour, honestly. But no, he was great. Former UCLA coach Steve Lavin on one of the most legendary staffs that college basketball has ever seen, the 1995 UCLA team. We cut it up with him, and we hope you enjoy. Here's our interview, Steve Lavin. All right, joining us now in studio is Coach Steve Lavin. Can I still call you Coach? That's my first
Absolutely.
question. Is when does that ever expire? I'm fascinated with this. Like the most egregious example of this is I noticed Grant Hill still calls Bill Raftery Coach, and I feel like Raf hasn't coached since the 70s. So do you feel like Coach is ever a title that expires? Or you're Coach forever?
It seems as though that's the case.
Yeah.
I haven't done a deep dive on the analytics or metrics of that subject, but Coach Lav,
all right,
seems to be.
We think the line
play.
is Dick Vitale, right? You just
you
don't call him Coach Vitale.
If you're calling him Coach Vitale, that's a problem. I'm drawing the line there. Yeah.
Yeah, and Raf probably gets Coach and Raf.
Yeah.
Right? Both three letters. And it's kind of
Sharp
in terms of syllables, right? It's just enough.
We wanted you on the show last week, but you had to call you were calling the Indiana Purdue game, and this was a big deal for you. You're going back to West Lafayette. You coached. It's my understanding that you had 3 coaching jobs, 3 stops as a college basketball coach. One was in Los Angeles, obviously, as the coach of UCLA. One was in New York City as the coach of St. John's, and one was in West Lafayette, Indiana. How do you power rank those 3 cities? Would you say, as far as like? Yeah.
It probably depends on the category. We have to establish that first. If it's
Corn, West Lafayette.
Yeah.
And if it's basketball fanaticism,
Indiana.
Both Purdue, right? The Boilermakers and the Indiana Hoosiers, and the high school state championship, right, is as special as it gets. When you look at UCLA, it's the dynasty that John Wooden built, and then everyone trying to live up to that standard, the gold standard that he set, not just at UCLA, but in the history of the sport in terms of achievement and success. And then St. John's, for college basketball, it's the crown jewel of that state. I mean, New York City, the Big Apple, the tradition, the Garden, the home court of the Johnnies. So they, for different reasons, are really special. St. John's history going back, the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, all the way up through Carnesecca in the mid-'80s when they kind of hit their apex and got to the Final Four with Chris Mullin and Mark Jackson and company. That has a special kind of feel and history. And the Garden, tough to beat as a place to perform, whether it's basketball or if you're a musician, right, or a vocalist.
You never stop recruiting, do you, Tate? I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm ready to commit, Coach. You got the papers here?
Yeah,
Where's
recruiting us, too? That's what we're saying. I guess Fox Sports is over here.
Well, and it all started at Purdue, so that is a special place.
I want to ask you that. How do you end up, you're a California kid, are you not?
Yes,
how do you
San
end
Francisco.
up, how does that happen where your first stop on the coaching circuit is in West Lafayette? Because my theory, can I offer you my theory, is
Absolutely.
that Gene Cady saw your hair and he wanted to somehow, it was like I gotta somehow take this man's hair and figure out a way. And it was like a whole science experiment.
Right there, that's a college basketball.
He was running like a Frankenstein thing that just went horribly wrong, and he never quite figured it out. And that was my theory. You didn't stick around long enough. That's the problem.
And I wish Coach Cady was here. I saw him
we do too.
last week at that game, and then talked to him yesterday on the phone because he calls quite frequently. And he would get a kick out of your premise.
Well, I read the one article that Greg Doyle wrote that he spends however much money on the hair on the comb over, the whole thing. But how do you end up at Purdue? How does a California kid end up getting in touch with Coach Katie?
Well, at a young age, I knew I wanted to coach. So it kind of starts there. And then I started writing letters to 4 coaches that I really respected that all had a defensive kind of approach that had allowed them to have great success. And there's a range in these 4. It was Mike Krzyzewski before he was Coach K, because this was in the mid 80s when I first started putting pen to paper and sending these letters. So Coach K, Bobby Knight, Gene Katie, and Jerry Tarkanian. And they're different. And then Jerry Tarkanian had assistant Tim Gergovich, who I really wrote more frequently because he responded. And I had met him through summer camps and through different coaches that I met. And surprisingly, all those coaches responded. So that began this kind of pen pal correspondence for a couple years. And
you
then
send like a picture with yourself as well, or they just like they're like, this guy has the hair.
somehow it always comes back to the hair. This was pre-gel. It was more of a mop top look, you know, coming out of the 70s. I was born in 1964, so I was the youngest of 6 kids. And so the 60s and 70s had a big influence without me even knowing it, partly because we couldn't afford to have 6 kids, you know, go to get a haircut or beauty salon in my sister's case. So we just figured it out. Yeah, exactly. But so that led to then eventually visiting those 4 programs. I had 1 year of eligibility at Chapman University. I had finished my playing eligibility. And so I took time between semesters to visit those programs. And I spent 4 weeks at Indiana, lived with Craig Hartman, who at the time was a manager, also Cree Smith, and
it's so funny because his dad
Brian
says
Sloan.
these names to me when I'm in Indiana, and I'm like, yeah, of course, Cree Smith,
Cree Smith. Who could forget?
Cree Smith, and I basically was couch surfing between the players and the managers, and then watching game film with the coaching staff. Eventually, was on the bench for timeouts and halftime, you know, post game talks, and then at every practice. And I did the same thing at Purdue. Then I went back that summer. This would have been the summer of '88, and worked their summer camps.
Okay.
And then Coach Katie called me at the end of that summer, August of '88, and said, we had some movement on our staff. There's an opening. It's a graduate assistant position. Would you be interested? And obviously I jumped through that hoop, and that was 32 years ago.
Wow.
And everything kind of came from beginning with those letters and those visits, and then working their camps. And then Coach Katie opening the door for me to this business.
So if you did like the coaching tree, we know like coaching trees, right? Everyone wants to pick who they're in the coaching tree with.
I'm in the Brad Stevens coaching tree, by the way.
Yes.
I was Brad Stevens' first coaching job he had. He was like 22 years old, and he was coaching 3rd graders at a local 3rd grade team of Indianapolis kids.
What if I told you?
I was
Mark
one of those
Titus
kids.
one of those
So
kids?
I've always said that I'm a Brad Stevens disciple, and I'm trying to get a job. So if you can help me out with that.
A good one. Yeah, at some point down the line, it could be a scout with the Celtics or
But
front office job for you.
To Tate's point, it's a tough question because, like, am I in the Thad Matta coaching tree or the Brad Stevens coaching tree?
Are you in the Bob Knight coaching tree, the Gene Katie? You know, I mean, Jim Herrick. Like, who do you pick at that point? And like, once you make that decision, do you have to live with it forever? Can you change? Can you pick a different tree? Is it like, are you a bird or not? Can you fly to a different tree?
Well, it's really good question or subject to try and tackle here, because you can also be a hybrid, almost like families that have, you know, the dad, but also the stepdad that was an influence.
We call that the Larry Brown.
Yeah.
Very good. And then there's the absent.
Also the Larry Brown.
Which brings in grandparents.
Right? Yeah, there you go.
So the older mentors and influences. So when I look kind of at the arc of my career, older people are at the forefront in terms of influencing. I was fortunate to learn from John Wooden, who was also a Purdue Boilermaker.
That's right.
I think that would be the best pick, right?
Yeah,
you say you're in the
all
Woody
roads go
coaching
back
tree.
to the Wooden.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Gene Katie, if he doesn't hire me, then I don't meet John Wooden at Purdue, and then I'm not at UCLA, and in all likelihood never become the head coach at UCLA unless John Wooden had known me since my Purdue days, because a nudge from John Wooden goes a long way, in particular when you're 32 years old, you're the interim coach, and have no prior head coaching experience. So having Coach Wooden in my corner was really helpful. But I learned a lot from Jim Herrick, and obviously was on staff. We won the national championship, was kind of a career game-changing experience. So indebted to Coach Herrick for hiring me at UCLA, and then also for him reaching that pinnacle moment of cutting down the nets and bringing an 11th championship to UCLA, and the only championship that wasn't won by John Wooden.
Yeah, right. Speaking of that, we're fascinated by that whole coaching staff. Like, I think a lot of people are. I think everyone on that staff it's a legendary coaching staff. With Herrick, we had you, Mark Godfrey, Lorenzo Romar, Jim Herrick. Anybody that follows college basketball knows all of you guys. Not only, as you said, have won the one title at UCLA in the last however many years it's been, but since that moment, you've all like gone on to do other notable, we'll say, great things. But you were the one that kind of emerged as the coach after Herrick leaves. What was that whole scene like when, as Tate said, when we were preparing for this, it felt, from the outside looking in, it feels like a Game of Thrones situation where everyone's stabbing each other in the back.
Godfrey,
and you
Lorenzo
won.
Romar. Yeah, I mean, you were the most tenured guy there.
Now that
you
we
came
know,
in 91, so you were the guy that was supposed to be picked.
And I
Did you feel it? Did you
I
feel
couldn't
the
help but
eyeballs?
notice, Coach. I couldn't help but notice when Tate and I last year we went to
Godfrey's
the
got good hair too.
we went to the Pepperdine.
No doubt.
We went to the Pepperdine Northridge game, and Coach Herrick's obviously on Gott's staff, and then Lorenzo Romar is the coach at Pepperdine. And I think I tweeted at you at the time. I was like, the whole staff is here, but you weren't there. Was that a conscious decision? Like, is there something going on there?
I was likely in studio.
Okay, all right,
Fox,
good. Okay, all right.
Tends to be what I do during the season
Okay,
for those
all
5
right.
months. But I would have loved to have been on hand. And I think the last time we were all together was a reunion for that 95 national championship team, whether it was the 15th year or the 20th year. This, interestingly enough, is the 25th anniversary, but I haven't even heard whether or not UCLA is doing something. Maybe because of the transition with Mick being in his first year. It's something they're going to wait until the 30th year. But usually the 25th year is celebrated.
I think Ed O'Bannon won his lawsuit, and he's just like, I'm good. I don't need to ever go back. Like, I got what I needed out of that whole thing. And he's like,
I don't agree. I think Ed would be leading the charge one more time. Cover Sports Illustrated Player of the Year, looking up at that banner, pretty special. But yeah, that staff had great chemistry. I mean, we had as much fun. It was nice to win, and winning clearly helps to set the tone or the mood,
right?
To have more fun and to be a little more lighthearted. But I also think because the staff was so different from one another, we came from different parts of the country. Coach Herrick was from West Virginia. Mark really had spent some time in Ohio, but also Alabama.
Let's say Alabama.
Yeah, is that
Alabama?
Is that something you can sense as you're in the moment? Like, it's easy to look back now and notice that all you guys are successful and had great careers individually. But like if I would have asked you in 1994 going into that season, I'd been like, do you feel like all these guys are great coaches? Including yourself, even at that point in time in your career.
I mean, it was unique in that we all aspired. To be head coaches. And I guess if you're at UCLA, maybe that's a given. Because the coaches that were assistants on the staff when I first arrived moved on rather quickly. And that played a part in me ultimately getting the interim job when Coach Herrick was dismissed and then becoming the head coach for 7 years. But Brad Holland was there as an assistant when I first arrived. Tony Fuller was there as an assistant when I first arrived. Greg White joined our staff at one point. And they all moved on to head coaching jobs. Tony Fuller went to San Diego State, then later Pepperdine. Brad Holland went to Fullerton, if I'm not mistaken, then San Diego, coached the Toreros. And so that movement kind of allowed us for Lorenzo to join, because when Tony Fuller left, Lorenzo joined our staff. And when Brad Holland left, I think Mark Gottfried moved up. Maybe I moved up and Greg White came in. So that plays a part too. Some of it's serendipity, fate. You have to be fortunate, timing, right, in life. I think you guys would look back at how you arrived at this moment, and timing plays such a big part of it. You can't deny that. And so I was fortunate in terms of the timing of things.
Sure. What's it like being an interim coach? What is that experience like of not knowing if it's your job?
That tag away, 'cause it's hard, because then people put that on you. You're like, well, I'm not the interim coach anymore. Now I'm the head coach.
Every time they introduce you, they say interim, and you're like, that has to sting a little bit. Like every single time, it's just like interim coach.
It was interesting because the way it was presented by Chuck Young, the chancellor at the time, who'd been there for decades, going all the way back to John Wooden's run, and Pete Dallas, who had been there for decades, went to UCLA, was a football manager, as a matter of fact, and then was working, I think, in recreation, intramurals, and then became the athletic director and had a long run at UCLA. And it was presented as, we don't know how long you'll be the interim coach. It could be a couple weeks, but we're going to do a national search. It could be a couple months, but we'd like you to hold it down and accept this interim position. And then when the new coach comes, we'll try and encourage him to keep you on for 1 year. So one additional year. So it was kind of
what a great deal.
Fantastic. Oh my God.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Well,
let me go recruit.
So what's interesting is coming from a town I grew up in with a population of 2,800 people in Northern California, and graduating from Chapman University, which had an enrollment of 2,500 people. I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that you're going to become the UCLA head coach, even on an interim basis. Even more mind-blowing that it was for 7 years, but even to hold it down for a couple weeks was something I could have never have conceived of until that moment. And I remember I went back downstairs, and my first call was to my mother and father, and then my second call was to Coach Wooden. And he had told me earlier that day, when things started to shake out, because I felt I was going to have a long time, or at least a lot of time on my end, to get out and visit him, because we're assuming we're all going to get sent, our way when you get a pink slip. And I remember him saying, I think you're going to be very busy. And I was like, And that was now, after
what a very
back,
Confucius way to say that you're going to get the job.
And he's very much that way, because that's what's interesting about Coach Wooden. You try and ask basketball questions, and he would redirect it, and suddenly you're talking about Gandhi and Mother Teresa and Martin Luther King and Lincoln and Shakespeare and Walt Whitman.
And then all of a sudden, backdoor cut.
Right. And I'm like, what about that 2-2-1 press? And then it's Churchill that we're talking about. Now, he had a way of somehow relating all of it to your initial question.
Like a parable.
But without basketball. And it was a broader way of teaching. And that's why he really prepared athletes, his assistant coaches, his teams for life beyond sport. And sport was just this, in his view, purest form of teaching things for life. And using his classroom, the basketball court, and practices and games as a way to teach these important virtues or values that will sustain you for the rest of your life.
Did you ever teach how to put on socks? Wasn't that a move that he did? Where he taught his players, like, here's how you put on socks. That's my favorite story that Walton likes to tell.
Yeah, another metaphor.
Right?
Because it's the attention to detail in terms of the way in which you make your bed, right? Or in this case, lace up your shoes and get ready. A preparation, right? That old failing to prepare is preparing to fail. The greatest thing we do for those we love is to not do for them what they can do for themselves.
Say this.
And that's a great one for parents, teachers, coaches,
hit pause right now,
leadership.
kids. Write this down.
And he was the first to admit that, some was paraphrasing, some was direct quotes, from Lincoln and Gandhi. And
it must have been so good to be him back then too, before the internet, where you could just rip quotes from people and no one could catch you. Be like, God damn, John Wooden's the smartest guy I've ever. Meanwhile, John Wooden's he's got a big library of books. He's just reading a quote, and then he walks outside and says it to everybody.
In fact, the last time I saw him at his apartment in Encino, he had all these books out. And, I come in, it's like, wow. And he's 99 years old, just short of his 100th birthday. And he ended up passing, I think, June 3rd or 4th of 2010, because I had just accepted the St. John's job in April of 2010. And I'd always check in with him anytime I was either interviewing for a job or considering a return to coaching. And he'd give this great advice, because he's has life experience and just has a wisdom and sees the world in a different way and looks at life through a different prism or lens than most of us because of all the time on the planet, because he's so well read, because he's grounded in education and the way he was raised by his parents and all these other wonderful traits that he possesses. But he was studying all the world religions at 99 years old.
Wow.
I mean, talk about a deep dive.
Yeah.
And he's coming to the finish line of his life, and that may have played a part in it. And he said, I happen to be a Christian, Steve, and that's what inspired my walk with Christ. He said, but the older I get, I'm realizing these religions are more similar than they are different. And yet with all the bloodshed and the carnage through the years because of differences, as opposed to finding more of the commonalities, the common threads that run through all religion. I was just like, wow, you talk about an intellectual appetite to learn and to grow. Yeah. I still get kind of goosebumps thinking about it. And I was like, that's the guy I'd like to be at 99, to still be lucid enough, interested enough, have that intellectual curiosity and that appetite to learn and grow. And in a subject that it's not like fishing, which is nothing wrong with that, or, collecting coins. I mean, it's world religions and trying to find common threads among them all.
I was going to say, especially when you ask him about a matchup zone and then he starts talking about all the world religions, you're like, man,
it would be funny.
You just want to get a good inbounds.
It would be funny if you did the...
Coach, I'm going back to St. John's. Did you hear what I said?
Give me some help.
It'd be funny if you did the opposite and you wanted to talk to him about religion and all he ever talked about was basketball. Or like you ask him like actual like real life questions and all of his metaphors are basketball and you're like, this is the most backwards thing. What's it like? So you have a relationship with Coach Wooden as you're at UCLA. How do you, is it a conscious decision to make sure his shadow doesn't cast too much over you? Like to have that position and he's coming to games and he's in your life. Like, I feel like there would be that element of where like you're trying to be Steve, you're trying to have your own thing. You don't want to just have John Wooden's shadow over you at all times, but at the same time, it's John Wooden and like, you got to invite that into the program as well. Is that something that you were conscious of or you just...
I mean, you're aware that there's this large shadow because of his achievement and because of the unique person that he is and what he accomplished at UCLA. I think I was fortunate that because I got to know him first at Purdue when I was an assistant, every time he'd come back, Coach Katie would give me the assignment of making sure we got Coach Wooden to wherever he needed to go, whether it was a book signing where he's autographing his books or it was to an event that we were honoring him at. So driving him to the airport, bringing him to campus. And so we had that relationship going back to the late 80s. And then when I arrived at UCLA as an assistant coach, graduate assistant, volunteer assistant, I really was at times doing the same thing with him in terms of going over to his apartment, going to dinners with him, meeting him for breakfast with other people that had come in and had relationships with the UCLA basketball program, but naturally wanted to meet the Pope. They wanted to meet John Wooden. And so facilitating that, kind of bridging that. And I was writing letters with him when I was an assistant at Purdue and assistant at UCLA and took all kinds of notes, yellow notepads of Coach Wooden's pearls and gems of wisdom. So we had a unique relationship that probably no other head coach in the history of UCLA had because it had to do with the common thread of the Big Ten, and the state of Indiana, and Purdue basketball. And then also because I'm someone that loves the history of basketball and grew up in a basketball family. And my father had played for great coaches and Pete Newell and Phil Wolpert, who are both in the Hall of Fame. And my dad had played at the University of San Francisco. Also, my dad was an English teacher. He loved language. He was a wordsmith. Etymology was something, and the history of anything, whether it was jazz or cinema, music. He had an appreciation for history. So Coach Wooden was an English teacher, and his two passions were basketball and language and words, and those were my dad's two loves. So my dad taught in the classroom at every level, and Coach Wooden's classroom became the basketball court. But he started as an English teacher, Dayton, Kentucky, and then South Bend Central High School in Indiana, and then Indiana State was Division II at the time that he was there. He also served in the Navy, and then came to UCLA for a 27-year run.
Do you believe the story that he chose UCLA because the power lines were knocked down in Minnesota?
He told that story.
Do you believe that? That seems a little.
I heard it 12 times.
Doesn't it feel a little cruel to Minnesota fans to like hear that over and over and over? That like it basically was just like a bad snowstorm, one bad snowstorm, and maybe we're talking about Minnesota having 11 national titles and UCLA.
Although Minnesota might have not stayed with him.
Yeah, that's true.
15 or 16
that is true.
years, because UCLA was not known as a basketball program. They were kind of the stepchild to the Cal Bears. People don't realize that Cal was the established power, and then UCLA kind of came out of now the UC system as we know it. But it really starts with Cal. Then UCLA was kind of an experiment down south, and then it grew into obviously this amazing institution.
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about St. John's, specifically Amir Garrett, who has turned into like a world-class pitcher. Do you take credit for this? I heard I reached out, I did some research, and I was told that Amir Garrett quit. You can take credit for his baseball career because he was so disgruntled playing basketball for you that he quit and decided to pivot into baseball. I don't know if that's true. That's what I was told.
Sure.
My sources are a little hazy, though. Do you take credit for what he's become as a baseball pitcher?
Well, I don't take credit for what he's done as a baseball pitcher because he was just gifted from the jump. But it is true that it was clear that his real talents were in baseball. And his father, who I was very close with, as well as Amir, I mean, we talked about it. That, this was a nice cup of coffee, to play some college basketball. And he also was on the front end as we were trying to get back to the NCAA tournament. So he didn't get to be a part of, my fourth season where we won 20 games, and then my fifth season where we got back to the NCAA tournament, 2015. He was there in the year where I had cancer and missed a season.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then the next year my dad got sick and died. He was there for that season.
That's right.
So probably two of the toughest years in my life is what Amir was a part of.
Right.
And so Mike Dunlap was his interim coach.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I came back. So I had 1 year with him. But I'm just glad he's doing well, whether it's because he was disgruntled or not.
No, I'm obviously kidding. But I find it fascinating because that's got to be a conversation that you're like not prepared for as a coach. You're used to guys saying, I think I want to go pro. I think I want to transfer. But to have a guy be like, I'm great at baseball. You're like, huh? Like, what? Like this?
And from the
that's got to be like a weird,
And I tried to sell them on, hey, coming to New York, no better place to kind of build your brand.
Raise your profile.
One of the entertainment centers of the world. You got, pro teams there with the Yankees and the Mets. And worst case, you have baseball to fall back on, but why not get a couple years? And he was, at that point, the Reds had his rights. So he'd already signed a deal. And had income coming in. Dusty Baker, who was a friend of mine that I got to know through the years because I'm a big baseball fan too, and he loves basketball. But I remember Dusty saying he's as big a prospect as they have in their organization at the time. So I knew it was legit. It wasn't just, sometimes people say they're great at every sport, but they're not.
I'm sure you saw the fight against Pittsburgh that he was involved in, where he basically said, I'm going to try to fight the entire Pittsburgh Pirates roster.
Can't say I was surprised. I mean, we had a couple, I'm almost sure.
That's old Big East.
We had a
That's
little
old Big East right there, yeah.
We had a little dust up with Notre Dame, and I think there was a dust up with Georgetown maybe during the end of the game handshakes or pregame, when you're crossing the court and you have to go to opposite ends to get to your bench. But even in practice, he was a really fiery, intense. And we had Sir Dominic Pointer, who also grew up as a boxer and a football player. And he was actually, his father trained heavyweight fighters. And we got into it. I forget who it was, someone on the Notre Dame team, but Dom was the wrong guy to pick on or trash talk with, because he could get 2 or 3 punches in, before you even raised your hand. And he was that gifted.
Gifted. That kid could throw some haymakers. I've never seen anything like it.
True. Even as a basketball coach, I could
acknowledge. It's a utility guy for us right there.
Oh my God. I want to ask you a little bit about Coach Katie, because I know how close you are. You said you talk to him all the time. He was famously was he on your staff at St. John's or not? Like,
yes. 5 years. Our
what
special
was his
assistant.
job?
Well, we called him Basketball Buddha.
It's what Jim Herrick's doing right now with Coach Godfrey.
Right.
Exactly.
It was very confusing as I was watching St. John's game. I was like, that's Gene Katie, but
my personal Mr. Miyagi.
Okay, I got you.
The Oracle of Hoops.
Yes.
That,
Coach K hit him with the Abe Lincoln line.
Yeah.
And his were priceless because they were so different than Coach Wooden's.
Yeah.
But they were still rooted in wisdom. Yes. But he had a more direct way of saying things like, get your head out of your,
I feel like
get after them.
I feel like the national. I feel like Coach Katie doesn't really have much of a national what reputation or whatever. He was always in the shadow of Coach Knight because growing up in Indiana, I was well versed in who Gene Katie was, but he was basically like a diet version of Bob Knight, like in the sense that Bob Knight won a little bit more than he did. Coach Katie yelled a lot and had the fiery attitude, but that's Bob Knight. Like he is the fiery attitude. Are there any stories that you get? Like, can you help me explain to our listeners who Coach Katie was? Because I think to most people he was just like the guy who happened to be coaching at Purdue when Knight was there. When in reality, that guy and has I think he's famous for the comb over.
I think the hair.
But other than that,
it always comes back.
It doesn't seem like a lot of people know a lot about him, and he was a wild character. Like the guy was
incredible. Well, first, just on the achievement front, it's interesting. 7-time national coach of the year. I think a 6-time Big Ten coach of the year. And the only coach in the Big Ten to have a winning record against Bobby Knight, 21-20.
That is true, yeah.
Head-to-head competition. And obviously the NCAA tournaments, a couple Elite Eights, came up short of the Final Four, which was something that really drove him.
Yeah.
That was his catalyst. He got up every morning with the purpose and the intention, and he was open about it, that he wanted to get to a Final Four and win a national championship. And even though he didn't, what everyone around him learned from that kind of focus and purpose and intention was special, because you all take that with you when you go to your respective coaching jobs, or for our players, the different industries they went into. And he kind of thrived on that underdog mentality, that we weren't getting the respect that we deserved. And he liked it that way. We were always picked 7th, 8th, or 9th, but then we'd win the league. And that's what he took pride in, because they just would always say, how could Coach Katie win with these players? Because it wasn't as though we had, a number of lottery picks or there were some guys later in his career.
Yeah, like
Glenn Robinson.
Big Dog gets there, and then it's
and Brad Miller.
Right. Brian Cardinal.
Carpenter. Yeah. Steve Scheffler had a couple years in there, and there was an outstanding trio of Ever Stevens, Todd Mitchell, Troy Lewis, but they didn't have long careers in the NBA.
Matt Painter's listening, like
college players.
Matt Painter's listening, like they're gonna say my name at some point, right? They have
Carson
to.
Edwards.
They have to.
Well, Matt was there for
Carson Edwards.
Yeah, I was there 2 of Matt's years on staff. So
did you recruit him?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't personally.
No, you
recruit
did.
him.
No, you did. Just say you did.
Oh, I recruited Matt Painter.
Yeah, you're the reason.
I got
take
that
credit
done.
for
Matt Painter is the Steve Lavin coaching tree. Yes,
there you go. There it is. That's what we wanted to say.
He tells a funny story because he actually was taking my coaching philosophy class, but I guess there wasn't enough room in the class, so I had to drop him. Or maybe I was concerned about a potential academic scandal. But he was in class like 2 or 3 weeks. It's the story he tells, and then I dropped him. I thought he completed the whole course, but I don't think that's the case now, because he's told me often enough, like, no, Lav, you kicked me out of the class. You don't remember? Like, I said, well, anyway, he had a gift, a feel for the game and an interest in the game.
Yeah.
He was a historian as well. And, he'd come in and watch game film with the assistant coaches. And he was the only player while I was there that did that. That was kind of unusual. When I was UCLA, more players were starting to do that, because I think there were some pros that would talk about, if you love the game, you're going to study the game. And like a quarterback or football players would in the NFL. So, but yeah, he just had, it wasn't like he was talented or gifted by any means, but he also grew up around
glue guy.
IU. He was close with Pat Knight.
Yeah,
so he was around Coach Knight some, and so we didn't think we'd be able to get him. And again, he wasn't Mr. Basketball, but he was someone glue and understood and could transport the ball and understood angles and how to compensate for his lack of athleticism. And that's why he's such a heck of a coach.
Yeah.
As he's coming at it, if you reverse engineer that with someone that had to really pay attention to detail, be fundamentally sound, find a way to get in the game, because he couldn't just rely on his athletic ability.
What was your playing career like?
Division II, small college, worse than Matt Painter. I started at Chapman University. I'm sorry, I started at San Francisco State
Quote that
University.
Yeah. Worse than that.
So I started at San Francisco State University in terms of that's where my career started. I didn't start on the team.
Were you a San Francisco Dons fan growing up?
I was.
Great. Yeah.
And
they were great back in the day.
That's what Bill Cartwright, Chubby Cox, Winford Boynes, Phil Smith, Kevin Rustani, Eric Fernston. I mean, that's when USF had pros.
Yeah.
And obviously going way back, Casey Jones, Bill Russell, back-to-back championships, 60 straight wins. They have the second longest winning streak on the men's basketball side. And at one point, it was the top streak until John Wooden came along in 188. But yeah, the Dons dominated. They were Gonzaga before Gonzaga.
Yes, so we know some chicanery that went around with like a president leaving San Francisco to go to Gonzaga and make Gonzaga the team. We can't confirm that, but something happened.
Yeah,
we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, I have a big conspiracy about this, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, they shut the program down for a couple of years, and then they never really covered. Loyola with Paul Westhead had that great run to the Elite Eight with Gathers and Kimball and Jeff Fryer, a 3-point shooter.
I think the theory, the president of San Francisco was a Gonzaga graduate.
Yes.
And right when he took over at San Francisco, I think that's when they shut the program down. And then Gonzaga
He was an
became
inside
great.
source.
It was an inside job. So he went to San Francisco. It was
Now, if my history
it was a
if my memory serves me well and my sense of USF history, Father Loschiavo was the president that actually decided to shut the program down for a couple years. And it's interesting because in my view, when I look back at it, I'm not sure that would have happened today.
Yeah.
I think they would have acted severely and swiftly in terms of...
It wouldn't have happened.
But I don't think the program would have been shut down.
No, they don't shut down. I mean, look around. They don't even fire guys for things anymore.
And that's
much less shut things down.
I mentioned Loyola Marymount had their great year, but then Pepperdine started to dominate.
Yeah.
And eventually Gonzaga takes it to another level and never looks back.
Yeah. Anything else, Tate?
I was going to say, like, if you looked at all the West, we do like a Pac-12 update, which is basically any team west of the Mississippi. We talk about that's the Pac-12. That's West Coast basketball. Is there any team program other than Gonzaga that you look at? You're like, that's a team, that's a program that's going to blow up. Is it San Diego State? Is it maybe Pepperdine?
Who are the sleeping giants?
Yeah, is it Cal State Northridge with Gottfried?
In terms of the West Coast, I mean, we know St. Mary's is kind of consistent.
Yeah,
so they're already pretty high profile. Gonzaga, BYU, you know, who knocked off Gonzaga.
What's the best job out here on the what's the best West Coast job that people wouldn't realize is actually a great job to take?
Other
if that
than
makes
Pepperdine.
sense. You know, is there one that comes to mind?
I think USC.
USC is do you think that'd be a good job?
I think USC has the potential, and Andy Enfield's had some real success.
Yeah.
And I think they want to take it to another level, as they should. Tim Floyd looked like he was right on the brink of getting it rolling and did get to a Sweet 16. I think they upset Texas with Kevin Durant. They had Taj Gibson,
they did.
some other outstanding players come through. But then Nick Young, that's right.
OJ Mayo
as well. Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting. Like, I look at San Francisco and I think that's a job that could return to a high level with the international flavor if you recruit overseas. A little like what Randy Bennett's done with Australia, going down under and bringing those players and building a powerhouse for the West Coast Conference. I'm not saying like powerhouse to be a 1 seed,
right?
But the fact that within
no, that's what I mean. Yeah, just
strong.
Like
and what San Diego State is doing is remarkable.
Sure.
I mean, the transition from Fisher to Dutcher, kind of seamless, even though they've, you know, of late had some challenges, but that's going to happen. 18 to 22-year-olds, everyone's gunning for you. Your number, you know, undefeated, you know, up in the top 5 for the majority of the year. There's going to be an off night or a less favorable part of the schedule. No easy games, but a less favorable stretch. And or your kids just aren't on point in terms of competitive greatness, and you're facing someone that is on point with a sense of urgency and purpose, and that's how you get beat. You know, people panic and say, "Oh, so San Diego State's terrible; they're not for real." It's like, well, wait a second.
No, they're good. They're just
defensively.
They play great defense, and they have a guard that can score 40. I mean, you almost did the other night. Like, what else do you want?
No doubt.
All right, I think that's it. That's all I had for
it.
you.
Fun.
Before we get out of here, you have to think Adidas, right? This is the thing in college basketball. You're fully with Adidas. Adidas runs college basketball. We learned this a couple years ago.
Well, I didn't get any free gear.
Oh, so this is just letting it be known.
No, Jasmine and I went down to Venice on Abbot Kinney. They have the new Adidas store.
Yeah.
And so we picked this out, and she gets a lot of credit, you know, in terms of, you know, directing me in terms of style points.
Adidas, drop the bag.
Is Venice your spot in LA? Like, I don't want to give away too many personal details here. We're not trying to get people knocking on your door, but like, what is your vibe of LA? Like, where do you?
I moved here in 1991.
Yeah,
and in the 25 years, because there were some 5 years in New York, and I've been up in San Francisco for 3 years, but the majority from 91 forward has been in Venice and some in the Marina.
Okay.
I lived on the Silver Strand. As a matter of fact, I walked by it yesterday. Hadn't been there in probably a decade. Take a look at my old home, nostalgia. And I had a number of different. I lived on North Venice, across from the Venice Library. I lived on Penmar Avenue near the golf course. I lived on Electric Avenue, one of my favorite spots.
That's the best. Yeah,
close to Abbot Kinney. So
right behind.
And I've forgotten a couple other spots. I lived on Maxella in Lincoln.
That might be the Venice coming out.
Exactly.
You've forgotten some of those things.
True. Yeah, you got it. Secondhand smoke. I mean, you got to be careful that area.
Mick lives in Santa Monica, right? I think that's where he's at.
Yeah, it's a West Side.
Do you feel like that tells you a lot about the UCLA coach, like where they live? Like, I mean, I don't know. It would to me. I'm glad you're a Venice guy, because I would be worried that you were like just a Brentwood, like. Yeah.
No, I kept it real, kept that commute going.
Just stay,
yeah. I can't say I was living in the hood.
Yeah, but no, that keeps it real.
But I stayed true to my roots.
That's
and
good.
The first place I lived, actually, I was roommates with a guy named Bobby Houck, who ended up being the football coach at Montana, then was at UNLV, was a coordinator for a couple of years. Now he's back at Montana as the head coach in football. He was a grad assistant for Terry Donahue at the time. And then Doug Erickson, who's basketball operations at UCLA, has been there 28 years, one more year than John Wooden, I like to say. And I had played with his brother at Chapman, Al Erickson, and that led to Doug getting on staff with Coach Herrick, hiring him. And now he's there 28 years. He's outlived, I think, 6 coaches. Coach Herrick, myself, Brad, Ben Howland,
Steve
Alford, Murray Bartow, and now Mick Cronin. So 6 coaches, and Doug Erickson has lived through them all.
Are you already firing Mick Cronin? Is that what the sound like you're saying? Mick Cronin's gone. That's the way you said that.
6 coaches, 6 feet.
I had one more thing. I just remembered. Can you settle a bet for me? I've had this debate with my brother forever.
I swear we'll let you go, Coach.
We are going to let you go. This is the last thing I want to ask.
We're good.
I've had this argument with my brother forever. The clip with you and Majerus when you're at ESPN. If you know what I'm talking about, I feel like I know the answer already. I am of the opinion that you knew exactly what he said. And for those listening, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Coach Lav was talking about Rudy Gay. He tosses it over to Rick Majerus, who says, you brought up Gay. I got to say, I'm not a big Gay guy, is what Rick Majerus says. And you look to me, I've always been of the opinion that you turn to the camera and start cheesing because you picked up on what he said exactly immediately. Is that true?
It is true.
Yes.
And Dave Revson, if I'm not mistaken, was the host of the show. And my immediate reaction, I heard it. I was going to say, because it was around Christmas, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm always thinking about themes and narratives and headlines, for the seasons to try and tie something in other than just basketball to our work in the studios.
How do I tie a bow on this?
Right. Otherwise, it get to be a little bit Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah.
And just to liven it up to entertain ourselves, if for nothing else, even if the audience doesn't find it entertaining, we do. So I wanted to say, but you are a big jolly guy.
Ooh, yeah, that would have been good. Yeah.
Christmas, Santa Claus,
right.
That's great.
And joy and,
That's a great joke for the family.
But there also was the filter.
Right.
And I think being at UCLA for 12 years,
right,
both as an assistant head coach, it definitely teaches you, and that was even before social media and the bombardment of information, everything that Marshall McLuhan saw coming in terms of the electronic age and instruments and tools and whatnot, like these phones that we have right here. But I just buttoned the lip.
No, you played it perfectly.
It was the original Michael Scott moment. I just looked at the camera.
Smile,
you just turned and smiled. That's all you needed.
Within a blink,
that's all you needed.
I was imagining what could end up happening from this,
Meanwhile, Coach Majerus just keeps talking.
It was so great because it's perfect. It's on YouTube. You look at it now, like you handled it perfectly. You just turn and smile because, like, every time I watch it, I'm glad it wasn't an accident because you know how it is. Sometimes when you're on TV, you're not necessarily paying attention to what the other guy's saying. So I didn't know if it could have just been a coincidence that you just turned and smiled at that time. But I always believed in my heart of hearts that you knew what he said and you were reacting to it.
I did.
That makes me so happy.
And rest in peace, Rick Majerus.
Yes.
He was one of the great basketball intellects, and he's
one of the great characters too.
And he was interested in things other than basketball, social justice.
Yeah,
and interesting background. I think his father was a union guy way back in the day in the Midwest in Milwaukee.
Didn't he? I heard two things about him, and we're making this interview way longer than I meant for it to be. But
it's fine.
One was that he took the USC job for a couple days, and his mom said, like, you can't eat, like, they don't have good enough food out there, that you got to stay home. Like, there's something about, like, his mom saying, right? Like, this was the rumor I always heard, like, something about, like, stay in Milwaukee, we have great sausages here. Like, they don't have that in LA. And the other one is that he always lived in a hotel and never actually had, like, a real apartment or house. Those are the two things I always remember.
And I think,
and something with a towel, I guess.
Like many of the discussions we've had right today, it's interesting to know the apocryphal, right? The degree of authenticity to them, because good storytellers, right, as you guys know, and can appreciate, will embellish at times to make the stories more interesting, or just to get a good laugh, which is understandable.
That damn Gandhi.
So, I think his mother was in the late stages of her life, and that was an aspect that he enjoyed at television, was getting more time with his mother. That's one of the areas I was fortunate. Both times I was fired, I was able to spend time with my dad, before he passed, and you can't get that back. And it's different when you're spending a lot of time and you're younger, right? When you get older and you're more best friends with them in your 40s and 50s, that's when the good stuff really begins, because they're not so much a parent, they're just your best friends. And being able to pay it back and take care of them and whatnot. And then I was fired at St. John's in 2010. I had this run with my mother that I would have never had. So it was kind of interesting, not just saying power positive thinking, and boy, that's really reframing being fired twice into a positive light. I lived it. So it's not spinning it. It's, if you get time with your mom before she dies, that outweighs everything. A basketball game. And I love basketball, and I may coach again someday, but that time with my mom, my dad, before they pass, I would take any day of the week over basketball.
Yeah, now you're making me feel bad. I thought the story is that he loves his mom's cooking so much. He's like, I can't go to USC, because I had so much respect for him. I was like, oh my God.
I think that's what he would have presented to the media.
Yeah, that's probably what.
I also heard that he wasn't comfortable at USC, and he was just kind of paying attention to his previous stops in coaching, and there was something about, nothing against USC, incredible institution, but every person's different. Yeah, sure. So for him, and it could have been, too, just the natural second guessing. He was undefeated at ESPN. He was enjoying the work. I actually was with him during those years. I was at ESPN 7 years, and I think 4 or 5 of them we were together. And so I lived it in terms of him thinking about returning, then eventually returning for a week and then coming back. And the ESPN executives were really understanding, because, sometimes they'd say, forget it. You left us. We're not taking you back. But they did take him back. Amazing day. I'll never forget. Was, he had a rather big jacket, and we're in studio and we're right about to go on air, and all of a sudden there's all this smoke coming up, and his jacket was on a light and it caught fire. And he had,
like Christmas Vacation style.
Unbelievable. He had to get the jacket off, and the guys, the cameramen are coming over and stomping it out with their feet. And he's
Rick, where did you get this rug? This is my jacket.
And he didn't want to wear that jacket to begin with. So he's saying, that's what happens. You make me wear a jacket, it ends up catching on fire, And if he didn't get something, they had those instant analysis for 60 seconds. You got to nail something. And that's not his forte. He likes to go and riff. Like a great jazz musician, and talk basketball and be able to move in very unique ways and then bring it back to the main point. And so we'd be in there an hour sometimes with that instant analysis. And when he'd mess it up, he would slam his fist. And he's a big individual on that table. I mean, and all kinds of expletives coming out, and smoke coming out of his ears. And so it was priceless, though, and we'd actually be like, Rick, you're good. You almost had it. It's perfect. Hey, maybe just simplify it to just the one thing on Kent Benson.
Stick to Benson.
Right. Or, the important elements involved in feeding the post, because he could break things down like to a science. And at times I'd kid him, because I said, so basically what you're saying is get the ball inside. I mean, you spent 5 minutes explaining, the intricacies. That's what made him a better coach, probably. But we'd have fun. We'd have fun with that.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Coach, for doing this.
Pleasure.
Congratulations
on all your success. You guys are the sensation. You're setting the gold standard.
We'll take it for what it is, though.
Big. I like that.
We're trying to get at the adult table. Talk to the people over at the adult table, Fox, and let us grab a dinner. Let us grab one meal.
So I'm the advocate.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. And then I get a little kickback.
Doug Gottlieb tried to be. We're like, Doug, don't worry about it.
He might alienate some people.
We're like, Doug, we got Coach Lab.
You got to know the audience. Doug is.
Would you hire Doug to be a coach?
I don't think he. Am I the head coach? He's the assistant, or am I the athletic director?
You're the AD.
You're the AD. Would you hire? You're the Oklahoma State. That's the only job he wants. You're the Oklahoma
if I
State.
Answer it seriously,
yes, we'll cut it out.
Not directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
From his role in media, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if he were to be an assistant, or associated coach, because he knows a lot of people, and get the feet wet.
be a fall guy.
3-4 years, and then I think he'd be ready to be head coach. But if you've never coached basketball at any level, now he's played it, and he's got a program down in Orange County that his father started, and now Doug has kind of taken it on, and it's skill development stuff. Doug knows the game, obviously, having been a point guard and being able to teach the game. And he grew up in a basketball family where his father coached at different levels and had incredible mentors. And his brother is coaching Oregon State as well. But I still think if you're going to coach the Division I level, it's important that you've done it as an assistant or a head coach. Just because it keeps changing, and you've got to have some familiarity. And doing it as a player is a big piece, but I still think you need to do it as an assistant coach before you become a head coach. And now someone will say, well, what about Steve Kerr? Unique. The NBA is different. Pat Riley taking the headset off and stepping in for the Lakers when they had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy and
when you
and
have
Jamal
one of the greatest
Wilkes,
teams of all time,
Magic Johnson, and then he could grow and learn on the job. And the NBA is different because it doesn't involve the recruiting piece.
Sure.
It doesn't have compliance in terms of NCAA violations. It doesn't have even the psychology of dealing with 18 and 22-year-olds, more now than before because the NBA has trended so young. But it's an expectation. If you play like Pat Riley did or Steve Kerr, there's a respect that's built in, and I think you can transition into the pros easier. In college, there's just a multitude of elements that don't have anything to do with basketball. And then there's the basketball side as well. But
so if
the car dealerships.
Right. If someone called Gottlieb coach, that would be over the line. Yes. We would have a problem with that, is what you're saying.
We'll make sure
if we said, Coach Gottlieb. All right, thank you, Coach. Thank you for doing this. All right, thanks again to Steve Lavin for coming in, sitting down with us, and just being all around great. I was gonna ask him, Tate. I was gonna throw out my thought about how coaches. I have a theory that the more hair product you use, the more you're cheating if you're a college basketball coach. But he was being such a nice guy that I felt.
How many cheaters do you know that are
out.
bad guys? To be honest, you know what I mean. Like most of the guys, it's a game of college basketball.
Yeah.
And define bad. You know what I mean. We like BAG.
Yeah.
We like bad guys.
I just I meant to bring that up to him, but anyway. Thanks, Coach. I'm calling him Coach.
Yeah, let's call him Coach forever. Yeah, he's our coach.
He should be the coach of the
coach of the program.
Coach of the program.
Yeah,
there we
that's
go.
what we want. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. What do we got to hit before we go?
We have to hit the fact that the Duke Blue Devils played against Virginia, a game that they always win in Charlottesville, and Jay Huff defied them.
From Durham.
10 blocks, from Durham, North Carolina. A guy that I'm sure he grew up wanting to play at Duke, and Coach K said, not a 5-star? No thanks.
He said, Jay, you already have a house in Durham. That's not how this works.
I've already had a Jay Billis. Yeah, I don't need
the way it works is I buy the house for the families to move to Durham. You already have it.
It's like, I already live here. Yeah. I go to Jordan High School. He's like, I never heard of it. But anyways, Duke lost that game, and then Duke played NC State tonight. They had a rough start in the first half. There was a lot of questions. People were saying, what's going on with this team? I thought they had an identity as a defensive team, and they don't have that anymore. Coach K is playing a zone again, which usually...
Are you criticizing K? Because, listen...
Which is the question,
Look up in the banners at Cameron. If you dare criticize this man, why don't you go ahead and take a look up, Tate? Just look up.
He's slowly like leaning into it. You know what I mean? Like I saw tonight, he ran off the court and he like was high-fiving people on the way out. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, if you're Coach K, like LeBron said the other night, just kiss my ass. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna do exactly what I want to do, and you can literally kiss my ass. Coach Knight taught us that. Coach K is living by that mantra, and I respect that. I like that. I like that about Coach.
But
K.
are you worried? I mean, not you would worry would be the right word for
I'm
you.
not worried because I know that Duke is going to win the national title.
But is this setting the stage for K going down a blaze of glory? Like I feel like that's the more he's like kiss my ass, I don't
K
care
to the
anymore.
Lakers. Yes, send him to the Lakers.
Is setting it up for the Knight choking a guy, Woody Hayes punching a guy, I don't know, something. It doesn't. It feels like the more K doesn't give a damn about anything, the more we're progressing towards a
look. If you're already
fallout where it's
if you already live in hell, I mean, how much worse can it get? You know.
We have to talk about Baylor. Is Scott Drew a good coach in your opinion, Tate? Your thoughts?
Yes, right. They won, so he's a good coach. That's how it goes. So
did they beat TCU though?
Yeah, well, true. Okay, there you go. So we don't know. Again, this is
we just watched them. We watched them beat
Texas
Tech tonight in overtime. They lost at TCU though. Desmond Bain went nuts on him.
Yes.
Is he a good coach? He's going to.
Let's call it an outlier.
I told. So the two things I'm rooting for now is UCLA to win the Pac-12 but miss the tournament. The other thing I'm rooting for is Scott Drew to win 32 games and not or 30 plus and not win a single trophy, not win the Big 12 regular season, the Big 12 tournament, or make the Final Four and even get like a regional trophy, anything. That would just be the absolute perfect Scott Drew season where it's like, we don't know. Was it a good year? I don't know. He won 30 games. He was number one in the country for a long time, but he literally won nothing. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll call them the church league champions.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Check
Someone
back in
at the
next
church
year.
will get him the chaplain or something on the team. That'll be good. But yeah, that'll be Baylor. We don't know. Let's just forget about Baylor. Let's talk about. I have like a bunch of notes. This is the first time we've had this our production crew, so I'm kind of like just seeing what the people are talking about in the college basketball world. Brad Underwood, a guy that I love at Illinois, gets a contract extension. Did you know this? 3-year contract extension.
He did. Yeah.
Does it matter? No, no.
You don't care.
No, but I love that those are like stories that we put out to the world to say like Illinois likes Brad Underwood.
Has there ever been a contract extension in college basketball history that you're cared about?
Danny Manning. Only Danny Manning. Because I support Danny Manning.
I don't think there's ever been a time where I guess John Calipari did one. When he signed the lifetime deal and we found out it was only for 10 years, I was like, I cared, but only because I was like, wow,
someone mislabeled this.
Yikes. Yeah, oof. Or someone's tipping us off for plans they have 10 years from now. Look out for the coronavirus,
Coach Gillespie.
It's coming for you.
He's coming back.
By the way,
are we getting updates?
No, I'm getting live texts. Gottlieb's texting me about how much he loves to laugh. I'm not even kidding. My phone's blowing up right now. It's Gottlieb. He said, "I saw your tweet."
You send him the end of this show.
I saw your tweet. Said, "Oh God." So we'll find. I guess we're gonna find out if Gottlieb listens to the show or not. We will. We have a new John Dealer situation.
Spoiler
on our hands.
alert: He does not. He listened to his episode.
Can I just say? Can we pour one out for Maryland real quick? They're still gonna win the Big Ten. But as it turns out, Maryland is not the juggernaut we thought they were, and they go into a game against Michigan State and just get. I've been saying for the last 2 months, I want to see Maryland in a blowout. I want to see them. I just want to see like a dominant performance, and I got that. But it was from Michigan State. Maryland was blown out from start to finish. They were embarrassed on their home court. As it turns out, everything I said about Maryland is true. They have not played a good 40 minutes in 2 full months. But they're going to win the Big Ten, so that's cool. Congratulations.
I mean, look, it's a win. At the end of the day, it's a win for the Terps. That's what we care about here. If they're happy. Also, we should point out another team that went after us, Marquette. Marcus Howard, senior day, big moment. Everyone's like, this is Marquette's moment to make the statement.
Marquette fans.
Marcus Howard's the best player in the Big East, right? Yeah. We're going to see it here today. And we're all in. You know, Miles Powell, he delivered, and Seton Hall gets the win. So we're just pointing that out.
Yeah, listen, we're not patting ourselves on the back. But at the same time, I'm going to pull a muscle in I'm gonna pull my tricep if I reach too far back.
Yeah, just pat yourself on the back. In the country.
I want to shout out a couple of highlight things. Number one, we were talking about K throwing haymakers at the haters. Chris Holtman, did you see this? Did you hear about this? We beat Michigan. I'm saying we. I'm back on the we train. Yeah, the panic button has been unpressed.
Yes, we're good.
We're on the we button now.
Ranked.
Smash the we button.
Back. Beat Michigan.
He said he saw all the tweets from all the haters, everyone in January. Basically, so I forget who it was. Was it Sperber, I think, that tweeted out the Jordan Sperber, who, if you're a basketball nerd, great Twitter follow. I think he tweeted out like efficiency rankings by month, and he was highlighting UCLA's because UCLA's is like in November 706, and in December 12,000, and then in February it's like 12, and you're like, where the hell did this come from? Ohio State's was what was lost in that because everyone was focusing on the UCLA one. Was Ohio State's numbers were like they were number 1 in November, number 7 in December, then like 86 in January, and then they're back to like in the
What
top
happened
10.
in Vegas?
So basically, just something happened in Vegas. They had a bad month. They're back. Chris Holtman saying, I saw all your tweets when we went 2-6. I saw them all. Thank God I didn't tweet anything. I just said I hit the panic button but you know,
it's a dicey proposition because Coach Holtman follows both of us. So anything we say, we know he may see, especially after he says something like that. So we'll just keep saying nice things about Ohio State, regardless of what's going on.
No, the Buckeyes are playing well.
Yeah, they're doing great. We love them.
Yeah.
Great team.
Yeah,
love
and
losing
also Dayton is the other Ohio shout out I wanted to give. Did you see that Dayton? First of all, they got us shirts. That's awesome. They sent them into the studio. Fantastic.
The only D's
work.
we'll put on our chest, Dayton. Well, maybe you
Speak
may
for
put
yourself.
another D on your chest. Duke, I would never put that on my chest. Never.
Dude, name the price, and I'm easily bought.
A house in Trayburn.
Dayton made, was it 26 straight 2-point field goals? Did you see the stat?
Oh yeah, this is what Parlay Kid sent me this. Yeah. This is like this is for the fans of Dayton that want to have like the underdog, like to carry the torch for them.
Yeah.
This is something that they send to their friends. Like I told you, Dayton's a really good team.
We already know Dayton's a good team.
Exactly.
We don't need to be told.
But this is what you say.
But it's still an incredible
your
stat.
neighbor that you're kind of.
Are you not
friends with,
impressed by
you
that
send them a
stat?
text. I'm impressed by the stat.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by any Dayton stat. Again, put the D on my chest. I'm all about Dayton.
Oh man.
All about everything Dayton. I'm a frequent flyer. I've been a frequent flyer. And look, you love Ohio. I'd like Ohio. It's okay to me. It's not my favorite, but Dayton is my favorite city in Ohio.
Dayton.
I've never been there.
Even Dayton fans are like, what the hell?
No. Never been there, but my favorite city in Ohio.
Dayton
been
fans
to Columbus.
Yeah.
Been to Cincinnati.
Been
Been
to
all over, driving through all these different places in Ohio. Dayton's still number 1.
Have you been to Granville? That's a great city.
Nope.
Athens is a fun time.
Nope.
You'd love
you
Athens.
could say any city, and I
Coldwater.
would believe that it's in.
Shout out Coldwater, Ohio. Had a good time there. Got alcohol poisoning there. That was a fun night. Anything else before we go?
With moonshine? What's going
It
on?
was.
in
I got
Coldwater, Ohio?
alcohol poisoning on cherry bombs. It was. I was throwing out the first pitch of a wiffle ball tournament.
Okay.
And this is a true story. I was asked to be a celebrity wiffle ball first pitch thrower, and I was like, "This is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. I have to do this." I showed up the night before. And I went to the one.
They got you in a hotel. They brought you.
Yeah.
Okay.
They let me crash it. No, it gets better. So I went. I did not stay at a hotel. I stayed in someone's RV in their front driveway that they parked in the front driveway. And I
were you at a family reunion?
Yes.
Like, we got Club Trillion here.
We went to the bar, one local bar in the place. It was owned by, I believe, Todd Beckman, the quarterback of Ohio State. It was owned by his family. They recognized me. They invited me behind the bar, like back, not like behind the bar, but like literally in the back room where the big fridges with all the alcohol. They said, take whatever you want. I was like, I don't know. The statute of limitations is probably up. That seems illegal now that I'm thinking about it, but it's probably been long enough. They said, take whatever you want. So I took a gallon of cherry bombs, and then I was drinking it all night. And then I threw up in the RV that I slept in. And then I went to throw out the first pitch, and I was still drunk. I was not hungover. I was still drunk. And I threw out the first pitch. I walked over to the shadow of the tree, the shade, passed out, missed the entire tournament, woke up, and just basically drank a bunch of water for a few hours until I could drive back to Columbus.
This sounds like you were set up in Coldwater.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah,
basically
pretty much.
Let's get this guy hammered. He'll throw out an easy first pitch, and then
God knows what they did to me while I was knocked out. But
only Coldwater knows.
Love you, Coldwater. Anything else before we go, Tate?
I just want to point out Kobe White, a guy that a lot of people that are saying is not a great point guard compared to the likes of Ja Morant and these other people, having a great run right now. Again, I brought it up last week, 33, 35. Led the team in points tonight, the Bulls, and they got to win. So Kobe White figuring it out.
Well, congratulations, Kobe White. Shout out Seton Hall. Want to share at least of the Big East title.
I will bring up Kobe. I will be the only media member to ever bring up Kobe White.
Yeah.
And I will stand there, and I will like it. I will enjoy it.
With
this D on my chest.
Seton Hall want to share the Big East. First time they've done that since 1993. Shout out to them. That's it. That's the show. Go check out Homage. We have shirts. You can buy shirts. We're giving away shirts for the send in your dirty laundry stories. TitusandTate@gmail.com. We will be reading those. We're excited to bring that back. That's everyone's favorite segment. We've been purposely holding it off. I wanted to do it right. Like, that was the problem, is I feel like we have to give something away. You have to, like, make it a competition and say there's a winner, there's a prize. Unfortunately, the prize is just a stupid T-shirt, but there is a prize now. So now we're going to bring it back.
Maybe 2 stupid T-shirts. Maybe
Why not?
Maybe
Let's
a
get
couple
crazy.
T-shirts. I feel like 2 is better than 1.
Yeah, we'll give away some shirts. So send in your stories. We'll get into that. It's March. It's here. We're excited. Let's make it happen.
How do we stop John Rothstein? He's taking over the world right now. Maybe we'll say this for the next episode.
We'll save
my
it for the
goodness,
next show.
it is March.
For the best access, perspective, and personalities in all of sports, follow us at Fox Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.